And then the characters themselves. Every single character has a history. They have a background. They're the sum of all their experiences. They had an upbringing. All of their thoughts and actions are dictated by these things. And in the whole story, nothing is forgotten. And everything that happens in the story happens for a reason. It can be referred back to. Most things are referred back to. And even the things that aren't referred back to did somehow advance the story, advance your understanding of what's going on, advance the characters, or develop the characters. So nothing happens in there that doesn't serve it somehow. And these are all things that I think they really go back to the whole writing the story in advance, because without doing that, I'm not talented enough to do all this.
Well, there just would have been no way.
There would have been
really, there would have been no way. Even an outline is kind of nice, but and I guess we can start going to a process now.
Yeah.
Because there are some comic books that or online comics that they'll say, oh, this is all written in advance, but all they really have is an outline. And then when they go to layout and script, and then it's like, oh, yeah.
And you see retcon all over the place.
Right.
And it's like, oh, crap, I forgot to mention this. Or, oh, man, I was supposed to introduce this character 2 chapters back, and now the part that I invented the character for is here, and I forgot to introduce the character. And we have that same problem. We're human. But for us, we can just go back and add it in there, and nobody will ever know that it was ever missing.
Mm-hmm.
Other than the fact that we're talking about it here in a podcast.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and also that's one of the nice things about having a production journal. And also we have a wiki that we put all of our stuff up on when we use Gabi. So basically we have, let's see, we have our meeting notes saved. We have a history of the script saved in either on the wiki or on the Gabi sessions that Adam's been very good about keeping incremental backups of, because that's not something we want to lose.
Yeah, I increment every single day.
Yeah. So, and of course I have backups on my end, but
the date of the save is part of the file name. So I think I have how many hundreds of Gabi files?
Yeah. And I think it will be fun is to later when the story comes out, show some of the earlier versions of the script so people can laugh at them.
Yeah, like how bad it was.
Because of how bad it was, yeah.
That's another thing, is that, I mean, really, this is a learning experience for us. And I've been making stories for forever, but I've never made anything like this. I've never done one collaboratively. And the thing of it is, I've always been a believer that the way that I can know if an idea is good or not is if I can bounce it off of somebody else and engage their reaction. If they like the idea, okay, this has potential. If they're indifferent or they're like, then I'll throw it out. But the problem is that I've been doing this with just generic people. I've been throwing ideas out, but a lot of people I found are very polite about, they don't want to make you feel bad. They'll tell you it's good, whether it's good or not. The nice thing about working with another writer, another person who understands story, who knows what they're doing, is that person can filter out my crappy ideas and won't be shy about if an idea is crappy. And I can do the same back. So I don't know who did what percentage of the story, and it doesn't really matter. The point is that it's better than anything either of us have ever done.
Yeah, by a long shot. I mean,
by a huge margin.
Yeah, because both Adam and I, we were working on our own little projects kind of on the side, and then we started working on this. It was holy. I mean, I think there's been a few times where we just leaned back in our chairs and we're like,
and just laughed.
We're like, we wrote this.
Yeah. Yeah. We had one of those moments after we finished chapter 14. We just sat there and stared at it, and we're just like, dude, I'm happy.
Yeah, that's a really emotional chapter. Keep an eye out for it.
Yeah, that one's... Now, I should qualify that by saying that everything is still subject to change, but as of this recording, that's chapter 14. And then we've been fighting each other back and forth on anachronisms. There was one that I really liked and wanted to put in, which ironically Glenn came up with.
Yeah, there's a chapter name that Man, yeah, see, this is gonna be so hard. We're trying to talk about stuff, but we can't spoil the story at all.
Maybe we'll just bleep it out.
No, no, this is fun. We can. Yeah, we'll beeple it out. That's like the same as not saying anything.
Yeah, kind of like that Penn and Teller thing where they asked Teller. It was on a radio program. They asked Teller to say something for them, and so he dropped the F-bomb, so they had to bleep it out.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah,
that's funny.
That was great. But yeah, and we're constantly learning new things as we go. I mean, it's getting a feel for what kind of ideas work and what kind doesn't. And the other thing is that I'm sure we'll go through a lot of this again on our next story. We actually have a couple of ideas in the idea bin for what our next story might be. It'll be very different from this one.
Yes, very, very different.
It'll be very interesting for me anyway to see which theories can apply to that one and which ones really don't as much. Because I think that a lot of things do depend on what the story actually is. You know, in this case, we're a fantasy. We have a magic system. Who knows if our next one will? Maybe not. This one has animal characters, which has its own set of rules. I won't never say never because I know better than that. But it's not likely that our next one will. So a lot of the rules that we have to follow that to handle animal characters, a lot of things we can put in and can't. Very careful about using words like human or suggest human.
Mm-hmm. Or what's up, man? Or
what's up, man? Well, I don't know. We could almost get away with that one. Can't use the phrase only human.
Right.
A lot of these things really may not apply in our next story, but that's the thing is that that'll be a whole new learning experience, and a lot of this stuff will apply. And I'd like to think that our best story will always be our most recent one.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm always down with outdoing ourselves.
Yeah, I think that we're the ones that we're in competition with is ourselves. You know, there's a lot of stories out there that just blow me away, and I'm like, dude, we got to totally beat this. But
Mistborn.
Mistborn.
Yeah, go read that if you haven't, which I haven't read it. Adam has. He can rant and rave about that one all he wants.
Well, yeah, Mistborn wasn't perfect. It doesn't really draw you in the first book. It's just the second book is where you start to get drawn in, and the third one I just went nuts. Yeah, so if you have time to read a book series, it's only 3 books long. Mistborn, I highly recommend, and that one really set the bar for me. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Glenn will attest to this. I'm constantly comparing us to that.
Yeah. Yeah. Wait, didn't we just say that we're only in competition with ourselves?
Yeah, I did say that, didn't I?
Yeah, but you know what? Looking at what other people are doing and say we have to do something that is as awesome as that. That's good. You know, that we can do.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and you know, we'll be constantly looking back at this and thinking what could we have done better. Hopefully, we'll get faster at it. I would like to. You know, we've been working on this for how many years now? I mean, we've been blogging about it for 1 year, but we had been working on it for at least a year by then.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I can pull up my my production journal and tell you. See, and that's what's nice about having a production journal is.
Speaking of production journal.
Yeah, we have dates for all this stuff. Like when we started working, I think I even have the point down when we decided, you know what? Maybe this shouldn't be this really wacky story. Maybe it should be a little more serious. You know.
Oh yeah, there's a little bit of background on this. Hackberry Hollow was originally going to be a really silly comedy, where we wanted to have a laugh in every release, and there's still some humor in there. There's actually quite a bit of humor in there, but the humor is a lot more natural now. It's there's a few artifacts left over from the silliness, but not very many.
Yeah, and when we do catch it, you know, it's like, oh, that's this thing. Yeah, this doesn't work anymore. Chuck it.
Yeah. I mean, there wasn't tension in there at all originally. It was just meant for you to just read it and belly laugh the whole time. But then what it morphed into instead. I mean, say I'm not much of a comedy writer, and I know Glenn is. He's pretty good with comedy. I tend to write tension. That's what all my stuff is. My past stories were all tension. Then, of course, I later learned about the highlighter principle, and term I coined myself. There's probably an industry term for it. Someday I'll learn what that is. But that's based on the theory that if you take a highlighter and you highlight every single line in a document, then you've really highlighted nothing because everything is the same now. The way to use a highlighter correctly is you only highlight the most important lines, or on a computer equivalent would be using bold. So the way you apply that to a story is at least as far as tension, and many other things as well. Tension is just one example. But you want to, if you want to have something feel intense, you have it follow up something that was slow. And you never want to have just constant tension. Battlestar Galactica I actually found quite boring because they had so much tension in every scene. If there was enough tension, they bring in the woman in the red dress. And it got boring. You got to the climax of the episode, and by that point, the tension had subsided. You're relaxed, and it's not any more than what you had before. So what we're doing is we'll have a chapter where there's a lot of dialogue. It's slower. There's not much happening, and then all of a sudden, all hell breaks loose. So you'll go for a while. You'll be relaxed. The heart rate's down. You're not expecting much. You let your guard down, and then all of a sudden we get this super intense scene. And following that same scene up after something that had a lot of tension in it, you might not have gone nuts over it. But then if you follow up a slower chapter with the chapter that's really intense and high adrenaline, then all of a sudden it feels like it's double what it really is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and of course there's also the issue of making sure that whatever slow chapter or even like an intense chapter you put in there serves the story.
Yes.
And I'm trying to remember, how did we manage to pull that off? I'm trying to remember.
Well, there's a little bit of exhibition, but another trick is with a slow chapter is if the chapter has to be slow, I want to make it interesting. So you have this chapter where there's not much tension. The bad guys nowhere to be seen, etc. But in that you're just riveted. You're glued to this thing because it's so fascinating. Or you'll have a character moment, or sometimes we'll have comedy in such a chapter. We'll have something funny happen. Like, for example, let's bleep something out.
Okay.
Yeah, see that, Glenn? Now you have to edit this audio.
Great. Post-production work. Woohoo.
Yay, post-production.
Yeah, so that as that beep as an example,